الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين على مر الأيام والليالي والشهور والسنين أما بعد. We continue Kitaab At-Tawheed, 7:08 p.m. Friday, August the 16th, 2019. After the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam, which was still in the month of Dhul Hijjah, or this blessed month of Dhul Hijjah, the 15th of Dhul Hijjah, the year 1440, after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. We continue in the chapter باب ما جاء في حماية المصطفى جناب التوحيد, the chapter which comes in how Mustafa, meaning the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whose name was Al-Mustafa, the chosen one, how he alayhi salatu wasalam protected the boundaries or the sanctuaries of monotheism. And we said that the meaning of the title is every door that leads to the road of polytheism, is the Messenger of Allah not only prohibited polytheism and idolatry, but he shut and closed off every door that leads to it, what leads down its path, so one could stay away from anything that would be a reason for him falling into polytheism in the first place. You'll find that the great Imam Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, that he mentioned the ayah in this chapter in order to make a correlation to the title, or between the ayah and the title. You'll find that Allah Ta'ala says in his book, if everyone looks in the book of Surah At-Tawbah, it says, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَقُلْ حَسْبِيَ اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُوَ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَهُوَ رَبُّ الْعَرْشِ الْكَرِيمِ. No. وَهُوَ رَبُّ الْعَرْشِ الْعَظِيمِ. You'll find, if you look in your books, everyone, that the Imam, Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, that he put this in a chapter in order to establish that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had certain characteristics. You'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about his Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, verily or indeed has come to you a Rasul from yourselves. He's Azizun alayhi ma anittum. The first characteristic, is that it's hard upon him what you find of difficulty. So that's the first characteristic that's mentioned in the ayah. Azizun alayhi ma anittum. That it is hard upon him what causes you difficulty, or what causes you hardship. So that shows the great concern of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for his ummah. So that's the first characteristic that was mentioned in this ayah. Harisun alaykum bil mu'mineen. That he has that diligence, alayhi salatu wassalam, that the people believe. Harisun alaykum bil mu'mineen. Having that strong desire and that strong diligence for you to become believers. So that's the second characteristic. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, number one, that is difficult upon him, or what causes you stress or difficulty. Harisun alaykum bil mu'mineen. That he has that strong desire and diligence that you be believers. And he's Ra'uf and he's Rahim. The Messenger of Allah is Ra'uf, and he is also Rahim. And we said these two words are synonymous in a way, but there is a slight difference between the word Ra'uf and the word Rahim, even though they have similarities in their meaning. So number one, we mentioned and said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, the first characteristic Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about him is that it is hard upon him of what we find stressful, meaning of difficulty in the religion. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, whatever alternative he was given, alayhi salatu wasalam, he will always pick the easiest of the two, as long as it did not have sin in it. As long as it did not have any sin or evil, the Messenger of Allah will pick the easiest of the two affairs. You'll find a lot of examples of what we mentioned previously, how the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had that strong concern for his ummah and sympathy for them, of always trying to make sure that something of an affair would never be difficult upon him, whether it took place in the month of Ramadan, where the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had fear that maybe that Tawheed, or that praying in the night, that praying in the night will become difficult upon the people to the point that he was afraid that it would become an obligation. So he left it off, alayhi salatu wasalam, out of fear that it would become obligatory upon the people and they would not be able to do it. And as a result, they would be sinful out of neglecting something of an obligation or a duty for Allah ta'ala. So out of high concern for his ummah, the Messenger of Allah, you'll find that after he prayed with them those couple of nights, he stayed in the house out of fear that something would be obligatory that would be considered a difficulty or a hardship upon them, where they would not be able to do it, and maybe they would be considered sinful. Rather, they would become sinful if it was an obligation and they left it off. Or the different types of narrations you'll find that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, that he commanded that one, if Salat al-Isha, even if the proper time or the best time for Salat al-Isha was later, but the Messenger of Allah ﷺ made it clear where he said, لولا أن أشق على أمتي لجعلت وقت العشاء في وسط الليل. That if it wasn't a hardship upon his ummah, that he would made Isha later in the night or middle part of the night, if that was the most virtuous time. But out of fear that it would be a difficulty upon his ummah, he made it in the early part of the night, regards to when Salat al-Isha, when it comes in, and the performance of it in congregation. You'll find there's so many examples of which the Messenger of Allah was concerned for his ummah of what might cause them stress or cause them some type of difficulty, except that the Messenger of Allah put forth his utmost effort in making sure that those affairs were facilitated and made easy for them, to show that he had tremendous concern for his ummah of the affairs of the religion that would cause them some type of difficulty, and giving them some type of ease where it would not cause them any stress. So the first characteristic, like we mentioned, is said, brothers and sisters, he says, it is hard upon him, or is difficult upon him, what you find of stress. So that first characteristic is to show, alayhi salatu wasalam, his deep sympathy and concern for his ummah. In the ayah, you'll find that it says, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ. As we mentioned last class, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that a messenger has come from yourselves. And we said that the meaning of the ayah, number one, based upon the context, one of the meanings can mean from the Arab, meaning from the Arabs, which is true, as the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam came from the Arab. So one ayah, as we know, or one meaning of the ayah, the one meaning of the ayah, that it can mean minkum, يعني min al-Arab, that the Messenger of Allah came from the Arab, which is true. Or you'll find that some of the meanings, or the second meaning, of what Ahl Ilm mention, it says that it's general, meaning from min jinsikum, yani min jinsi al-bashar. That the Messenger of Allah came from amongst yourselves, meaning the human beings. Like he's a human being just like you. That's another meaning of the ayah. That Allah Ta'ala sent a man who was a human being, but at the same time, we know he was chosen as being or having a quality that distinguishes him from being from the rest of the human beings, which is a messenger and a prophet from Allah. But however, min jins, or from the type, that he was not from the malaika, he was not from the angels, nor was he, alayhi salatu wassalam, from the jinn. Rather, he was from the human beings. And he was a human being, alayhi salatu wassalam. You'll find, like we said, ala al-ihtimal al-awwal, that the messenger of Allah, a messenger of Allah, no doubt, he came from the Arab. So that's correct. And upon the second meaning, he came from human beings, and that is also correct. It says in the ayah, Rasul, as we talked about last class, that the meaning of Rasul is a man from the human beings, of course. He says that he was given a sharia mustaqillah. He was given a separate legislation, laying down the foundation, coming with something of a new message. Not as far as in the usul. As we know, all the prophets and the messengers, their usul, or the foundation of their call was one, without any differentiation, without any one of their messages as far as in the foundation being different. As all of them called to monotheism. But however, where the differences lied was in the shara'i', was in some of the legislations, were different. But the usul of the prophets are one. In contrast to the legislations, that some of them were different. And we gave numerous examples of this in classes before. For example, as we know, in some of the shara'i', for example, this is just an example, in the sharia or the legislation of Yusuf, and the legislation of Prophet Yusuf, alayhi wa ala nabiyina afdal salatu wa tamut taslim, you'll find it was permissible to make sujood to a person out of respect, out to show respect, and to hold someone in high honor and show reverence to them. You'll find that in the sharia of Yusuf, one can make sujood to an individual. Yes, you'll find that that's in the ayats in Surah to Yusuf, where his parents and his brothers fell in prostration to him. You'll find that in the ayah. It says right there in the ayah. They fell into prostration to Yusuf. The sharia of Yusuf, that it was permissible to make sujood, to show respect and honor for an individual. In contrast to the sharia, of course, of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sujood is not except only for who? For Allah Ta'ala. And that sujood we're making, or one making sujood to other than Allah, is polytheism. There's so many examples of this, but I don't have time to open up the door. But anyway, the usul of all the prophets and messengers were one, but the only difference lied everyone where? In some of what? The shara'i', in some of the legislations. And some of the legislations were different. Some of the legislations of the Prophet, jihad or fighting in the cause of Allah, wasn't legislated. Yes, some of the shara'i' of the prophets. Some of them were, some of them weren't. There's a lot of differences you'll find between some of the shara'i'. You'll find some of the differences lying in the legislations. But the usul of the foundations of monotheism were all agreed upon. As far as Ar-Rasul, as we talked about, Ar-Rasul meaning the one who's been giving a separate legislation, laying a new foundation down, or laying down of a new foundation. A separate message now where the previous messages that came before, or the previous legislations that preceded this one, have now become abrogated. So Ar-Rasul came with a new Sharia mustaqillah, a new separate legislation. So if one now was to work by the old legislation, then it would become unacceptable. That's why we said that all the legislations of the prophets that came before the Messenger of Allah ﷺ have been abrogated. And if anyone works by those previous legislations, then it is not acceptable with Allah Ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a final prophet and messenger with a final legislation and a final message that was general for everyone, from the ins and the jinn, from mankind and from the jinn. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ made that clear when he said, لو كان عيسى حيا أو لو كان موسى عفوا لو كان موسى حيا ما وسعه إلا اتباعي. That if Musa was alive right now, it would not be befitting for him except to follow me. To let you know that all the legislations that came prior and that preceded Ar-Risalatul Muhammadiyah, the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all have been abrogated. If anyone was to work by those old previous legislations, then like we said, it is now invalid. And for one to meet Allah upon that in this time that we live in, then he will find that what he is upon is invalid and is not acceptable with Allah, due to the fact that the legislation of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam abrogated everything that came before. So Ar-Rasul, like we mentioned in the last class, we said the meaning of Rasul is what, everyone? The meaning of it is the one who came with a Sharia mustaqillah, a separate legislation that abrogated every legislation before it. And that messenger was sent to a qawmun mukhalifin. He was sent to a people who are in opposition. They were in the state of mukhalafa. They were in opposition. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That is the correct meaning of Ar-Rasul. You'll find that the great Imam Rabi' ibn Hadi al-Madkhali hafidhullah wa ra'ah even mentioned this in his book Aqidat al-Salaf, that he brought this definition of what Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah mentioned in his book called An-Nubuwat. It's a book called An-Nubuwat by the great Imam Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, that he said that this is the meaning of Ar-Rasul. He said, the one who came with a Sharia mustaqillah. He came with a Sharia mustaqillah. He came with a separate legislation, and he was commanded to convey it to a people who are mukhalifin. People who are in a state of what? Or people who are in a state of what, everyone? It's in a state of opposite, or being in opposition. So that is the meaning of Ar-Rasul. As I heard the same definition from my Shaykh and the great, from our Fadilat al-Walid, and I heard this 20 years ago when I was sitting with Shaykh Abdullah al-Bukhari, when we were studying Kitaab At-Tawheed and also Usul al-Thalatha and Masjid Nurayn. And we also studied a part of Usul al-Thalatha, Masjid al-Qiblatayn, which is called Masjid Bani Salama. Anyway, Masjid al-Qiblatayn, then we moved it to the Masjid Nurayn, which is Masjid Uthman bin Affan, right by the Haram in Medina. Anyway, Shaykh Abdullah al-Bukhari said the exact same definition, and what the great Imam Shaykh Rabi' even mentioned, that this is the meaning of Ar-Rasul. Ar-Rasul is the man who came with a message that is with a Sharia mustaqillah, with a separate legislation, and he was commanded to convey it to a people who are in the state of opposite. They were people who are what? In the state of mukhalafa. They are people who are in opposition to what is the truth. Meaning that all of them were in a state of dalala, of misguidance. Then you'll find that the meaning of Nabi is what, everyone? Is the one who came with a Sharia, of course. Did he come with a separate Sharia? Or is it the Sharia that was already what? Being practiced. They came, no doubt, a message. No doubt they were revealed to by Allah. However, What did we say? What was the difference between a Nabi and a Rasul? What did we say? A Rasul came with... تفضل Jamal, what was you about to say? تفضل. You raised your hand. I thought you was about to... You was going to say... تفضل. أحسنت. Something new. Jayid. To sum it up, to make exactly what our brother said, alhamdulillah, he made it concise for everyone. He said, a prophet came with a message that was already what? Established by that messenger. It's still valid, that sharia or that legislation. So that the groundwork was already laid down. So that prophet came working with a message that was already what? Established. The foundation was laid down. However, the people generally were in a state of what? Agreeance with that the particular legislation, but they might have what? Deviated in certain aspects. So that Nabi came and brought them back when they were going astray a little bit in certain aspects. That Nabi came and brought them back to what is correct. Maybe a little bit of innovations might have crept in, or something of some type of inhiraf of deviation might have crept in, but generally the message is still there and it's still intact and the foundation is still there. So just to sum it up, that a Nabi was sent to a people who generally were in agreement, but they might have left off certain aspects of the truth, whereas that prophet came and returned them back to it. And returned them to what was correct. Whereas the foundation was already what? Still valid, and it was what? It was still established. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? In contrast to Rasul, who came with a new sharia, who came with a new legislation, and a new what? Message, which as a result of it, we said, abrogated what preceded it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. So the message of Allah is a Rasul, and he was a Nabi. The message of Allah was a Rasul, and he was a what? Nabi. He was both, alayhi salatu wassalam. As we said, every Rasul is a what? Nabi, but not every Nabi is a what? Is a Rasul. Every messenger is a prophet, but not every prophet is a what? Not every prophet is a messenger. Every messenger is a prophet, but not every prophet is a what? Is a messenger. The message of Allah, the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ. The message of Allah sallallahu was haris, meaning that he put forth a tremendous effort in order for the people to what? To attain a certain matter that was intended, of course, what it was also at the same time very important. The message of Allah had that tremendous desire and diligence for the people to believe, as it says in the ayah. If you look in your books, everyone, it says what? The ayah that the great Imam used as a evidence, which is agreeing with the title of the chapter. What's the ayah, everyone? The ayah, which is the Surah At-Tawbah, and if not, and the ayah is actually the last ayah in the Surah At-Tawbah, if I'm not mistaken. If you look at the last ayah of Surah At-Tawbah in the Quran, in the Mus'haf, if I'm not mistaken, it's the very last ayah. But anyway, Allah Ta'ala says in His book, verily is indeed come to you a messenger from yourselves, that it is difficult, it's hard upon him, or what you find of stress, or what causes you stress and difficulty. He has that tremendous desire that you be believers. Harisun alaykum bil mu'mineen, Ra'ufur Rahim. He said that you be from the believers, meaning that you attain what will give you salvation from the hellfire, from the punishment of Allah, Ta'ala, which is to be from the believers, if one wants to attain that goal. As the message of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam, was sent, and he had that tremendous desire, and you've seen that he put forth a tremendous effort, concern for the well-being of the human beings in general, to save them from the punishment of Allah and to attain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure. So he subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with him. When the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, him having these characteristics of having or being hard upon him, what causes us stress, putting forth that tremendous effort for us to be believers, and that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was also Ra'uf Rahim. He was Ra'uf Rahim. As a Ra'uf or Ra'fa, as we know, Ra'fa means Shiddat al-Shafaqa. It's mean having a tremendous high concern and sympathy, which is a type of mercy. Notice that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was called Ra'uf, and he was also described as Rahim. Ra'uf and Rahim. So that shows it's permissible for a human being to have the characteristic of Ra'fa and Rahmah. As you'll find that the word Ra'fa is riqqatun fil qalb. As Ra'fa is also a type of softness or gentleness in the heart. When we say that, that's in taking consideration the creation, not the creator. Is it clear what I'm saying? Riqqatun fil qalb, lightness or gentleness in the heart, is Ra'fa. Rather, you'll find that Ra'fa is ashad al-rahma wa araqquha. Rather, you'll find al-rahma or Ra'fa, before I get into rahma, Ra'fa is the greatest type of rahma. Is the greatest type of rahma, of mercy. And it's the most gentle of it. It's the most gentle of it. Ra'fa. As Ra'fa is ashad al-rahma. It's the most highest type of what, everyone? Of mercy. And it's the most gentle of it. Rahmah is riqqatun bil qalb. Likewise, is gentleness of the heart. Is gentleness of the heart to the point where a person shows sympathy for the marhum. He shows sympathy for the one he's having mercy upon. He shows and displays mercy for the one, or sympathy for the one he's having mercy upon. When we say riqqatun fil qalb, lightness or gentleness of the heart, that's taking consideration, or that's in regards to who, everyone? The makhluq. That's in regards to the creation only. As for Allah Ta'ala, then we do not give the meaning of Ra'fa or Rahmah with this type of what? Explanation. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Rather, you'll find that there's differences. Rather, there's tremendous differences. Whereas Rahmah, the Rahmah of Allah Ta'ala, if we start with the Rahmat al-Makhluq, as the Rahmah, the mercy of the creation, is not similar to the creation of the mercy of the Creator, As we know, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ clearly establishes in the authentic narration, which is in Al-Bukhari, the authority of Abu Hurairah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mi'a rahmah, 100 different types of what? 100 of His mercy. We don't say parts, don't say that. Mi'a rahmah. Just say 100. Do not say parts. Say mi'a rahmah. 100 what? 100 mercy. Where one is given to what? Is given to the creation. Does that mean that this characteristic has been separated from Allah? No, it doesn't. I'm going to explain why. We say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Messenger of Allah clearly established by saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mi'a rahmah, 100 what? Mercy that He put. One in which you'll find that the creation, as a result of the athar, of the effect of that mercy, that the creation displays it to one another. To the point where the one or the dabba or the beast or the type of those animals that crawl on the earth, which is called a dabba, that it raises is what? Is hafiraha an waladiha khashata an tusiba. You'll find that it raises its paw from its child out of fear that it might hurt it or afflict it with some type of harm. That is from the effect of the mercy of Allah Ta'ala that He put on the earth amongst the creation. This does not mean that the mercy of Allah is separated from Allah. It's a difference between the characteristic and, like we said, the effect of the characteristic, as I explained this before. The characteristic ar-Rahmah, none of the characteristics of Allah breaks off from Allah. Is it clear what I'm saying? There's a difference between the mercy. Of course, that characteristic is not created, but the athar, or the effect of it, is what the creation what? What the creation shows and what they manifest to each other here on the earth. The effect of the what? Of the mercy. The athar of it. The effect of it. But the rahmah of Allah Ta'ala is not created, nor is it separate from Allah, or it separates from Allah, where it's broke off, and that part of it is here on the earth. That is incorrect. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? For that rahmah wahida, or that one mercy, like we said, that one mercy, meaning the athar, the effect of that mercy here on the earth amongst the people. Not the fact or the meaning should not be understood as this characteristic broke off from Allah. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? I want everyone to understand that carefully so no one can think or no one should have the false notion or understanding or incorrect understanding that the sifa of Allah, the characteristic of Allah, broke off from Allah. And that it landed here in the dunya, and people now implement that part that has happened and now has been applied amongst the people of mercy. It's not the meaning of it. I'll even read quickly what the great Imam Ibn mentioned in this regard. He said clearly here, same thing what we just said. فَمَنْ يُحْصِي هَذِي الرَّحْمَةِ الَّتِي فِي الْخَلَائِقِ منذ خُلِقُوا إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ كَمِّيَّةً وَمَا يَسْتَطِيعُ أَنْ يُقَدِّرَهَا كَيْفِيَّةً لا أحد يستطيع إلا الله سبحانه وتعالى الذي خلقها فهذه رحمة واحدة فإذا كان يوم القيامة رحم الخلق ب99 رحمة بالإضافة إلى الرحمة الأولى تنبه وهل هذه الرحمة تدانيها رحمة المخلوق الجواب أبدا تنبه. He said, now with the message of Allah informed that Allah Ta'ala in regards to His mercy is 100. One has been put, meaning one of the mercy has been put here amongst the creation, يَتَرَحَمُ بِهَا الْخَلْقِ, in which the mercy shows, in which the creation shows mercy to one another since they've been created all the way up to the day of resurrection, to the point where the beast or those dabba or those creatures that crawl on the earth, that it raises its paw from its child out of fear that it will afflict it. Then the great Imam backs it up by saying, who is the one that can enumerate and count this mercy in which Allah Ta'ala has made amongst the creation, in which He has mentioned, in which the message of Allah mentioned, which is one? Who can now so-called now fathom or understand or be able to grasp that which the creation that they have of its athar, of its effect, since they was created all the way up to the day of resurrection? And who can now understand it, and who can now grasp it or comprehend it as far as in its kayfiyah of how it is? No one except Allah. In which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, created the creation with this mercy, meaning the effect of the mercy, in which one has been made of the 100 of which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has of Himself, and one of them have been made in the earth. For verily on the day of resurrection, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mercy upon the creation, As we know, the other 99 in which the Messenger of Allah mentions about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, and which is included along with it, that one mercy that was been put amongst the earth, amongst the people, and amongst the creation. Verily, this one mercy, what we understand, nothing is similar to it of the mercy of the creation. It's still not similar. Even though we still experience the effect of it, but we do not say that the rahmah of Allah Ta'ala is like the rahmah or the mercy of the creation. Even though they share in the general meaning and in the name. Is it clear what I'm saying? Even though they share in what they call al-mutlaq al-kulli. Al-mutlaq al-kulli. The general meaning where there's agreement in it. In the general meaning and in the what? And in the name. But as far as in the haqiqah or the kun, the reality or the essence of it, then it is different. The reality and the true essence of it is different. As the rahmah of Allah Ta'ala does not resemble the rahmah of the makhluk, for verily the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ending result of it is all praiseworthy. The ending result of it is all praiseworthy. In contrast to the creation, for verily mercy sometimes is subjected to fallibility. Where a person can have mercy where they need assertiveness. And a person can have assertiveness where they need what? Mercy. In contrast to the outcome of the mercy of Allah upon the creation, then all of its outcome is praiseworthy. All of its outcome and final result is all praiseworthy. Similar to that, what we mentioned in the previous lesson in regards to the anger of Allah. The anger of Allah is not like the anger of the anger of the creation is not like the anger of Allah. The anger of the creation could be fallible, meaning one can become angry and say things and do things which have exceeded the bounds because of their anger. In contrast to the ghadab or the anger of Allah, for we say the exact same thing for all of the outcomes and the final results of the anger of Allah, which comes as a result of it, the athar or the effect of it, which is the punishment of Allah. All of it is praiseworthy, and all of it, and all of it is what? Is just and praiseworthy. And the final outcome of it is praiseworthy. Because we know Allah Ta'ala says in this book, in the last ayah, which is in Surah, the very last ayah is Surah, not Fusilat, not Kawthar. And the last ayah, which is in Surah Zumar. The very last ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Zumar, last ayah, Allah Ta'ala says in His book, after, of course, you'll find in a long ayah where Allah Ta'ala mentions the people of hell will enter the hellfire, and the people of paradise will enter paradise, and it will say, وَقِيلَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And in the end it will be said, all praises due to Allah Ta'ala, due to the fact that after everyone has taken their final abode, or they have now reached their final destination, whether they be from the inhabitants of hell, may Allah Ta'ala protect us and you from that, and make us from the inhabitants of paradise. Once everyone has now reached their final destination and have settled in their places, at the end of the day, the final thing will be said is what, everyone? All of the praise will be for Allah Ta'ala. So the ghadab or the anger or the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the athar or the effect of it is the punishment of Allah. As I mentioned this before, we do not give the tafsir of the ghadab of Allah with the uquba of Allah. You do not say that the anger of Allah means the punishment of Allah. There's a difference between the actual characteristic and the actual result of it, or the effect of it. Is it clear what I'm saying? That which is the pathway or the methodology of the people of innovation, such as the Asha'ira and the Mu'tazila, they remove the characteristic and you'll find that they put in its place the result or the effect of it. That is incorrect. Is it clear what I'm saying? We affirm the ghadab or the anger of Allah, and then we also affirm its what? Its result of it, which is the punishment or the punishment of Allah Ta'ala, or His wrath descending, which the result of it is the punishment, or one entering the hellfire, or one being punishment in the grave, and so on and so forth. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Similar to that, we say about the mercy of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, all of it, the final outcome of it, is all praiseworthy. Allah does not have mercy upon one that makes a mistake. We do not say that. If Allah has mercy upon the abd, Allah Ta'ala's final outcome of what will be the result of it is all praiseworthy. And it is all proper, and it is all correct, and it is all complete. In contrast to the mercy of the creation, sometimes the creation is exposed to fallibility, meaning the creation can be merciful when it's time for him to be what? Assertive. And he can be assertive when it's time for him to be what? Merciful. That's in regards to the creation. But generally we know that we know that the rahmat al-makhluq, or the mercy of the creation, is a characteristic that necessitates ihsan to the marhum, that one treats and displays sympathy and gentleness to the one he's having mercy upon. But however, we said that the rahmah of Allah is not created, but the rahmah of the human beings is what? Is it created? Is it created or is it not created? The mercy of the creation. Is the mercy of the creation created or is it not created? Huh? Is the rahmah of the creation created? Naam, it is. Rahmat al-makhluq makhluqa. Why? Because it is from the characteristics. Allah created you and what you do in the creation, also your characteristics are created. Yes. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? The rahmah of the makhluq is makhluqa. Why? Because it's from its characteristics. The sifat al-khaliq, the characteristics of the creator, is not created, in contrast to the human being. They are created and their characteristics are created. طيب. It is also permissible for one to have qadr mushtarak baynahuma. For some of these names, one could be named Rahim, and one could be named Hakim. One could be named these names that we're mentioning now. And they can also be descriptions of the human being. Ra'uf, Rahim, Hakim, to the end of it. These characteristics or these names is permissible for one to be called by. He can name himself these names, Rahim. Or he can be called Rahim. Similar to that is where Allah Ta'ala describes himself as Rahim. Now, as far as Rahman, that's something different. We'll talk about that. As far as Ra'uf or Rahim or Hakim, and similar to these names, it's permissible for the human beings to have these names that also have their characteristics and be called that. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? As is clearly established in the ayahs, you'll find that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called him Ra'uf, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called him what, everyone? Rahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called him Ra'uf, and Allah Ta'ala called him Rahim. So it's permissible to call them a human being, Ra'uf, and it's also permissible to call them Rahim, and similar to that. However, like we said, generally, they have a qadrun mushtarak where they share between them, where everyone only in the general meaning. In the general meaning, fil mutlaq al-kulli, in the general meaning, and in the name. Wa fil ma'na al-'am, wa fil ism al-'am, in the general name, and in the what, everyone? And in the general meaning, before the idafa takes place, before the connection takes place, in the context. Is it clear what I'm saying? After the connection takes place in the context of the words, there is no resemblance whatsoever between the what? Between what we're saying now as far as with the characteristics of the Creator or the characteristics of the names of the creation. There is no what? Sharing between them after the takhsis, after the connection takes place, and we're talking about in the context of what it's been used in. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? But before the takhsis or that particularization takes place, where they're added of those characteristics to each other, then they agree in the general name. They start rubbing on your sore and your elbow. They agree in the general name, and they agree in the what, everyone? And then the general meaning. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Jayyid. After the connection takes place, then there is no what? Resemblance whatsoever. After the takhsis and after the idafa. طيب. If you notice if the ayah, which is the last ayah, Surah At-Tawbah, if you read it, it says, if they turn away, فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَقُلْ حَسْبِيَ اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُوَ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَهُوَ رَبُّ الْعَرْشِ الْعَظِيمِ. If they turn away, they say, the one who suffices me is Allah. Hasbi Allah. The one who suffices me is Allah Ta'ala. Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illahu. As we know in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was addressing the message of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, saying to put one's trust in Him subhanahu, and that Allah is the one who suffices Him. It suffices the believers, of course. La ilaha illahu. None has the right to be worshipped except Him. Upon Him I put my worship, and He's Rabbul Arshil Azim. So now we mentioned in the last part of the ayah, Rabbul Arsh. So Allah connected the Arsh to Him, which is Rabbul Arsh, the Lord of the throne, which is called Idafat al-Tashrif. I mentioned this in class before. Allah connected something created to Him in the context of the wording here. Lord of the throne. The throne is created. The Arsh is makhluq. Is it created? It's created, everyone. As the Arsh is created, and the Arsh is the Saqful Makhluqat. It is the roof of the creation. You'll find the Ahl Ilm, they call it Saqful Makhluqat. It's the roof of the creation. There's nothing above that of the creation. The Arsh, above it is Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala is above everything, and there is nothing above Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Rather, He subhanahu wa ta'ala is fawqa kulli shay. He is above everything. And He is above the Arsh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala connected the created Arsh, the throne, to Him, to show that that particular created thing has something tremendous and magnificent about it. So when Allah connects something in the context of the wording to Himself, is to show that that thing He connected to Himself is special, it is magnified, glorified, and is tremendous with Allah. So Rabbul Arsh. Rabbul Arsh, the Lord of the tremendous throne. To let you know that Allah Ta'ala describes the Arsh as being magnificent. Magnificent and tremendous and great. To the point where Allah connected the rububiyyah of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, His lordship, to the Arsh, to the throne. Out of showing the Arsh is what they call idafat al-tashrif, The connection of what they call tashrif. Idafatun iktasabat tashrif. A connection that is now acquired to show that that thing is honorable and high status with Allah Ta'ala. To glorify and to show that it is magnificent. As the Arsh is the greatest, which is bigger than all of the creation, everything, even the kursi. As the Arsh is bigger than all of the creation. It's bigger than all of the creation. And the Arsh of Allah Ta'ala is above water. And it's above water that is hovering in the air. Kaden, wake up. As the Arsh, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, His throne is above water. That's an ayah. وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Arsh is above water. So the Arsh is above water. The Arsh of Allah Ta'ala, as Ibn Abbas described it, لا يقدر قدره, that it cannot be measured. And it is the saqf al-makhluqat, it's the roof of the creation. Nothing surpasses of the creation goes beyond that. That's the border, that's where it stops, everything created. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the Arsh. And just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the Arsh does not mean that Allah needs the Arsh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need anything at all. And Allah wa ta'ala does not need the creation. And He does not need the Arsh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need anything. Rather, He does not even have the characteristic of need in the first place. طيب. Just because, like we said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the Arsh does not mean that He needs the Arsh. The infinite wisdom of Allah necessitated that He, tabaraka wa ta'ala, particularized the Arsh, that He would be above it after He created the heavens and the earth, and that which is between it in 6 days. His infinite wisdom necessitated that He would particularize the Arsh with istiwa, with ascension, whereas Allah Ta'ala is above the creation and above the Arsh, and at the same time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need the Arsh at all. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? The Arsh al-Rahman, as we know, had shook due to the death of certain people, which we'll talk about later. And from them was the great Sahabi, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, who the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had described that the Arsh of Allah shook after the death of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. That the Arsh of Allah Ta'ala shook. And you'll find Ahl al-Ilm mentioned in regards to that due to the fact that it was pleased with the soul of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. It was pleased with him. Radiyallahu anhu wa ardah. The great Sahabi, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. Out of being pleased with the soul of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, that the Arsh of Ar-Rahman that is shook after his death, radiyallahu anhu wa ardah. The Arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you notice in the ayah, Allah wa ta'ala Himself described it as it being azim. And there's other ayahs where it says kareem. The Arsh of Allah is azim. It's magnificent. And all of it, in another ayah, Rabbul Arshil Kareem, that He is the Lord of the honorable Arsh. Of the honorable Arsh. I don't want to get too much details. We'll stop here in regards to the ayah. Oh, good. There's more details, but we'll suffice with this. طيب. The next text, as we go on, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, if you notice, what is the connection? Ultimately, what is the correlation? Why did the great Imam mention this ayah in the chapter? What's the connection with it, with the title of the chapter in the first place? Describing the message of Allah with these four great characteristics. Now let's make the connection of why it was mentioned in this chapter of Kitaab At-Tawheed. Why? What's the reason? What's the connection? Tafadhal. Not the Arush. Look into the title of the chapter. What's the title of the chapter? Oh, you don't have the book. The 122. Oh, chapter 22. Chapter 22. What's the answer? Tafadhal. Of course, the whole book is in Tawheed. I can't say that's a wrong answer. Can't say that's wrong, right? What's the reason why Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab mentioned this ayah in the chapter? Why? What's the connection? What's the munasabah? Of course, put everything together. You gave me a bit of the answer, one part of the answer. Just to sum it up, because we got a lot of things we got to take. We got to hurry up. The reason why it was mentioned, he mentioned this ayah in the chapter. The title of the chapter is "What Comes." The chapter which brings what? How Mustafa, the chosen one, who's the messenger of Allah, protected Janab al-Tawheed, the boundaries or the sanctuaries of Tawheed. How? What's the reason why the great Imam mentioned this ayat in the chapter in the first place? What's the connection? What is it? Jayin. I can't say that's the wrong answer either. Just to sum it up, all these characteristics that the messenger of Allah was given, such as him being concerned of his heart, it was difficult upon him, alayhi salatu wasalam, would cause distress. He wanted us to believe he's Ra'uf, he's Rahim, to the end of it. Tafadhal. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll read it quickly. Come on, write this down, brothers and sisters. Be quick about this. It was difficult upon the messenger of Allah. Don't write this down yet. Hold on. Of course, we know it says in the ayah, it's difficult upon him what causes the stress. He's Ra'uf, Rahim, to the end of it. Right, everyone? If this is the characteristics of the messenger of Allah, he had all these characteristics. If this is the one who this is his characteristics, how could he leave off his followers, his nation, to fall into polytheism of anything that would take them far away from Allah, and what would be a reason for their what? Their doom and their destruction, where they will enter hell forever? Is it now befitting that one having these characteristics, that he would be laxed in the affair of polytheism? Exactly. Or that he wouldn't care, or that he would just leave the ummah not caring about warning from what would be or would lead to their ultimate doom, or their great demise and their destruction. Not clarifying in detail what polytheism is, what's the details of it, what will lead them down that road. Because we know what we're discussing now is the greatest danger upon any human being. And that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ would not clarify what would corrupt their life in this world and their life in the grave, or if you want to say, because you can call it life in the grave, life in the grave, and also what will be their final abode on the day of resurrection, which can cause doom and destruction to all three marahil and stages of life, and not clarify it and not give any details about it. So that's what the great Imam is saying here. All these characteristics which are the message of Allah. So how can you now think that he would leave such a dangerous affair to be what? Obscure and not be explained or be given detailed in regards to it? Of what would be the greatest destruction, or what caused the most ultimate ultimate of demise or doom or destruction for any human being, that he would just leave it unclarified or leave it obscure, leave it what? Without it to be explained. So that's the reason why he mentioned this ayah in the chapter. Because, like we said, the Messenger of Allah knew of the greatest danger upon his followers. Is this affair? So that being the case, him having all four of these characteristics of being what? Concern is difficult, having that great sympathy and concern for his ummah. And he is very merciful. And he was concerned for them that he would never leave the most dangerous of affairs unexplained, leaving it unclear and leaving it not to be what? Leaving it not to be what, everyone? Unclear. Rather, he made it clear as the sun in the sky to his believers or to his followers, so they can be on guard against it and they would never fall into it. And the Messenger of Allah gave clear instructions of how to avoid it. And he gave clear instructions of supplications that would aid one not to fall into it. So this is to let one know what is the connection of why the great Imam mentioned this in the chapter in the first place. For the one who has these characteristics, all four characteristics, what we just mentioned, would never leave the ummah in the most what? In the most general, wide open of attack, or be wild for attack, without giving them some type of clarification. Rather, he did, in the most clearest manner of what was considered the most greatest of danger upon his ummah, that he left it to be what? Just open without any explanation. Hasha wa kalla, that the Messenger of Allah would just leave that open like that. That's the reason why we say that the Messenger of Allah why the great Imam mentioned this ayat in the chapter, for this reason. For the one who has these characteristics, they know for sure that the greatest danger upon his ummah, he made it clear and he made it clear as the sun in the sky, and he made it and explained for everyone to understand in the most clearest manner. There's nothing in Kitaab and Sunnah you'll find that is the greatest concern upon the human beings, except the Messenger of Allah explained it in the most clearest, detailed, for the most uneducated, if you want to say, for lack of better words, person to understand. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? The most important of affairs, the Messenger of Allah gave the most details in. And he made it clear for it can be simple to understand, for any person can what? Grasp or comprehend its its meaning. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Tafadal, I'm sorry, Amir. I think it came. What comes in now? What, 8 o'clock now? 8 o'clock? It comes in now 8 o'clock? Yours say 7:58? Wow. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي وحمد الوصيلة وفضيلة برات المقام طيب. So now if you look at the title of the chapter, it says how Mustafa protected the boundaries of Tawheed. How Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam hama janab at-Tawheed. How he protected the sanctuaries and protected all the roads and the paths of everything that's connected with the foundation of this religion. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ shut every door off of what will lead down this road, to the point he even spoke about how not to light lanterns around certain places. And even in the place, and even in the aspect of, if you look to what the Sahaba were commanded to do, of when he even commanded some of the Sahaba to go on certain expeditions, or to carry out certain missions for him, to level out certain places that were raised, that had high structures, that he commanded some of them that they be well leveled off. And even to the point where some of the Sahaba had fear of certain places that took place, of course, that were considered tremendous events and occurrences that took place during the time of the Messenger of Allah, that had no particular fadl or virtue. But however, out of fear that the people would take it as a place of virtue, and later on Shaitan would decorate it and lead them down the road of polytheism. For example, such as when the Messenger of Allah and all the Sahaba gathered to give them the bay'ah, the pledge allegiance under the tree of Ridwan, tahta shajarat al-Ridwan. That was a particular place. They gave the pledge in allegiance to him of obedience and not to commit polytheism and not to steal and not to fornicate, and to the end of it. And what they gave the pledge of allegiance to the Messenger of Allah for. After the Messenger died, alayhi salatu wasalam, Umar al-Khattab buried it and wiped away all of its relics and all of its what? And all of what the people would know where it was at. Why? Out of fear that they would what? Take it as a place of virtue. And what Shaitan would utilize and he would decorate and we embellish to the people in their minds, and as a result of it, they would start to now utilize that place to what? Worship. They would start to now gather around it, be devoted in it, take it as a place of worship. And they might fall into what? Polytheism. In the name of Islam, by saying, see, this was a virtuous place because what took place was the what? The pledge allegiance, where the Sahaba gave the bay'ah to the Messenger of Allah. So that's not virtuous. So why when we think that there's something what? Something that is virtuous, something that we can practice and do worship in, and we know that the Sahaba what? Buried it, erased it, out of fear that they would what? Try to utilize it as a place of worship. And that's to show that the Messenger of Allah, along with the Sahaba, closed all the doors that will what? Lead down to the road of polytheism, which would be the most ultimate destruction of any human being, where he will what? And if he died in that state, he would be in eternal imprisonment of hell forever, if he died in that state. Taib. If you notice in the next hadith, hold up, Ahmed, hold on for 1 second. If we go into the next hadith, as we talk about the hadith of Abu Hurairah, radiyallahu anhu, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Oh, before we move on, Ahmed, what is the reason why this ayat was mentioned in the chapter? Why was this ayat that we were just speaking about for a half an hour, 45 minutes straight? What was the reason why it was mentioned in the chapter? Why? I just said it. I said Ahmed. Hold on for 1 second. Astaghfirullah. I forgot your name. Abdullah. Ahmed, answer the question. No. The ayat was in your book. There's a message that has come to you. Azizun alayhi ma anittum. It's difficult upon him. It was hard upon him. What causes you stress? He has that tremendous desire for you to believe. He's Ra'ufur Rahim. Why was the ayah mentioned in the chapter? Why? What do we say? What's the reason? What is the connection of the ayah in the chapter? Said it 1,000 times. Father Umar. Jayyid. Ahsant. Something that is the most greatest danger upon his ummah, the Messenger of Allah, never leave it to be unexplained or be confusing or vague or obscure. Nobody knows what it's Allah, the Prophet ﷺ made it simple. Explained it simple and made it clear. For example, don't pray in a graveyard. Isn't that clear? Don't sit on a grave. Isn't that not clear? Don't pray in a graveyard. Isn't that not clear? Do not light lanterns around a grave. Isn't that not clear? do not sit on a grave, do not walk on a grave, do not have a huge structure built on top of a grave. Isn't that not clear? Do not make any type of worship around the grave, especially in the aspect of tawaf. Especially now, that's in regards to a person worshiping Allah, and he cannot do that in the grave. And what about a person who actually directs their worship to another individual, another person who's deceased in the grave? That's clear. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ mentioned in several examples, not to believe in what? Not to believe in bad luck and omens. It's clear. Is it not clear? Don't practice magic. It's not clear. Is that clear or is it not clear? And despite of that, this type of clarification, you still see Muslims doing it. How much of bayan, of clarification, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ do you want? He made it clear as the sun in the sky, so it can be simple for any person to understand, whether they be a person of great understanding, great intelligence, or a person that's what? That has less than that. The greatest of affairs of this religion, the Messenger of Allah made it the easiest to understand, that any person can grasp it. Don't believe in bad omens. That's clear. Don't believe in that the stars have any effect on your life. With regards to what? Belief in the zodiac signs. Isn't that not clear? It's clear. Despite of that, people still do it. How much clarification do people need? Not to believe in bad luck, not to believe in bad omens, not to believe in these superstitions, not to believe in folklore and all these myths that all these people believe in. The Messenger of Allah clarified it, made it simple for any person to grasp its understanding. And despite of that, people still do it. Do not worship, don't worship in the grave. Not only do the people not worship, they put a grave in the masjid. Still do it anyway. The greatest affairs of the Messenger of Allah had the most concern, he gave the most text and clarification for. Especially for another example of that. In regards to the Muslim rulers, the Messenger of Allah knew what was going to be the biggest fitna for this ummah. That's why he came with a bunch of narrations that reached the level of tawatur. To reach the level that cannot be counter enumerated of how many narrations he clarified, because he knew that was going to be a fitna of his ummah. That the people were going to start now trying to overthrow governments and leadership and cause a bunch of problems and chaos in society. By now, coming with these uprisings, these revolts, and to the point of leadership becomes in a state of anarchy where the government is overthrown, and as a result of it, it's going to cause a bunch of what? Chaos and mayhem and mass hysteria in the society. The Messenger of Allah knew that was going to be a fitna, and that there was going to be sick people that was going to call to this nonsense. That's why he came with clear clarification for what? Be patient with the ruler even if it's unjust. Be patient with the ruler even if he's sinful. Be patient with the ruler. Why? Any person with any understanding knows what? They understand it. It's clear. People are doing uprisings, revolts in the street. I'm just going to stay in the house. And despite of that, people still what? Go out in the street and be acting like a bunch of animals and fools. Disobeying the Messenger of Allah and his instructions. Which as a result of it, the destruction of society. So there's so many texts that's clear. The Messenger of Allah made it clear. Stay away from intoxicants. Stay away from fornication. Isn't that not clear? So that means don't have a girlfriend. Don't go out on a date. Don't touch her. Don't be on the phone with her. Don't be on social media with her. Don't do any of these things. The people still what? Do it anyway. You understand? Clarifications. Clear as the sun in the sky. Grow your beard. How clear is that? The Messenger of Allah said, grow your beard. The Messenger of Allah didn't mention, say, grow your beard if your beard, grow the beard, maybe if it causes some hair bumps, then maybe cut it. Or if it causes an ingrown uncomfortability where you get an ingrown hair. No. The Messenger of Allah made it clear. Grow your beard. How clear is that? How clear do you want it to be? Straighten the ranks when you pray. How clear do you want it to be? Isn't it not clear? Clear as the sun in the sky. So what's the problem? Oh, I can't do that. Why? What's wrong with just taking your foot and going like this? Is it hard? It's hard to do that. You understand, everyone? Clear. Everything is clear. The Messenger of Allah, the affairs is the most concerned, detrimental for his ummah. He made it clear for anyone to understand. The problem is within us. We're the problem. As they said in the poetry, what's the poetry? As they say in the poetry, نعيب زماننا والعيب فينا وما لزماننا عيب سوانا. نعيب زماننا والعيب فينا وما لزماننا عيب سوانا. We criticize the time that we're in. But the aib, the actual, the function or the affairs that are considered discrepancy is us. And there's no discrepancy except the time except us. We're the problem. You understand? As far as in the Sunnah, the message of Allah, there is no discrepancy. The bayan, the message of Allah, conveyed it clearly. The message of Allah, for example, came out the house. The message of Allah used to look up all the time. And so in a lot of narrations where he used to look up. Some of them when he made dua. Some of them when he walked out the house. He looked up. And then during the time of the message of Allah when the Sahaba gathered around him for the time of Hajj, which was around this time, people just concluded. And he gave a farewell pilgrimage, or after the farewell, last pilgrimage of the message of Allah, he looked up and said, Allahumma hal ballaght, Allahumma hal ballaght, Allahumma hal ballaght. Oh Allah, did not inform. Oh Allah, did not inform. Tayyib, which is a clear indication Allah is above. Why the message of Allah on so many occasions used to look up? There's a narration of the message of Allah. When he used to leave the house, he used to make this dua. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an adilla aw dalla aw zilla aw zalla wa adlima udlama ajala yujala alay wa yarfa' ra'sahu ila as-sama'. It says in the narration, you make that dua, we step out the house, what I just mentioned. Oh Allah, I seek refuge and adilla, oh udalla, that I be astray, or I lead one astray, or I be led astray. Or I lead someone astray, or I'll be led astray. Or that I slip or make a mistake, or someone caused me to what? Make a mistake. That I oppress someone, or that I be oppressed. Or ajhala or yujhala alay. Or that I now act in a very unacceptable, demeaning way. Or that it be done to me. And the end of that narration, brothers and sisters, says that the message of Allah looked up when he did that, made that dua. He looked up. The narration is clear as the sun in the sky. That Allah Ta'ala is what? It's above. Why did the message of Allah look up? Huh? J. Clear clarification. Like we said, all these affairs, the problem is within ourselves. And answering the cause of the shayateen out here. Anyway. طيب, notice the hadith of Abu Hurairah. Notice it says, everyone, and we'll stop here because we're going to pray right now. We've got 2 more minutes and that's it, we got to stop. The message of Allah said, لا تجعلوا بيوتكم قبورا. Do not make your houses graves. And do not make my grave a Eid. And send blessings upon me, for verily, your salah reaches me wherever you are. طيب. First command, the message of Allah said, do not make your houses graveyards. The message of Allah said, لا تجعلوا بيوتكم قبورا. Do not make your houses what? Graveyards. طيب. I think it's clear for everyone to understand. The message of Allah said, do not make your houses like graveyards. How? How do you not make your house like a grave? Huh? Jayyid. Pray your nawafil or your voluntary prayers in the house. طيب. However, the mukhalafatul mafhum, the opposing understanding what we get from this particular narration is what, everyone? Look to what the message of Allah said. Basically, I'm explaining like this. I explained this months ago. The message of Allah said, do not leave your houses, do not resemble them like a grave by not praying in it. So that means what, everyone? What does that mean? Fadl Hassan. What does that mean? Tafadal. I forgot your son's name. Hamzah. Tafadal. That's a part of it. What are you? Oh, you was going to say something? Tafadal. Tafadal. Jayid. The connection of this to the chapter, the message of Allah is saying, don't resemble your house to a grave, because a graveyard is not where you do any worship at. So by you resembling your house to a grave because you do not do any type of worship in it. So as a result of it, you resembled it with a what? Or you resembled your house to a what? Graveyard. Because a graveyard is not befitting that you do any type of what? Worship in it. That's where I was getting to it. That's where I was going with it. Is it clear what I'm saying? So the message of Allah is as if he's given an indirect hukum that it has been established to you that you are not supposed to do any worship in the where? In the graveyard. So that means you do, by you leaving off your house with worship in it, you resemble it with where? A graveyard. By you not performing what? Worship in your what? In your house. Got it? Mafhum? Is it clear or is it not clear? It's well there? Gee. Is it clear, everyone? Tafadal, Ahmed, we got to stop here. Tafadal. We got to hurry up. Uh-huh. I'm not, I just went off the topic. I was just so, Tafadal. I'm not laughing at the actual affair. It's just like, that was just so random. Tafadal. That's a grave now. Khalas. You made it a graveyard. You bury someone in your backyard. That's a graveyard now. Khalas. Bury a dog. Would that be considered a graveyard? Could be. That's something that had to be checked. But I would think that is still considered a graveyard. You bury pets in there. Allahu alam. Tafadal. Everyone understand. Of the most important of affairs. Absolutely. No doubt about that. Absolutely. The most concerns and the most dangerous of affairs you'll find in the Kitaab and Sunnah, the Messenger of Allah gave the most clearest clarification. The clearest of clarification in so many texts. Because those were the most concerns for the ummah of what would be tremendous dangers. He gave so many texts, clarifying. And there's so many texts in Tawheed and Shirk and to the end of it, it's no way in the world that a person can say that, oh, I'm ignorant, I don't know what it is. It's too many texts, too many. Because it was the most greatest danger upon his ummah, that they would fall into what? To polytheism. All you got to do is take a look around you. How many people believe in oaths? How many people believe in zodiac signs? How many people out there believe in old folklore and myths and superstitions? All of them are out there. All you got to do is look what's taking place around you. Tafadal. You got to hurry up. Ahsant. Absolutely. The Quran, Kitaab Allah, that's idafat al-tashrif. Bayt Allah, idafat al-tashrif. Naqat Allah, idafat al-tashrif. Kalimat al-Ruh Allah, idafat al-tashrif. Bayt Allah, Ibn Allah, Abdullah, idafat al-tashrif. Naqat Allah, what's another one? Arsh al-Rahman, or Rabb al-Arsh. That's idafat al-tashrif. Now if you say Rahmatullah, That's not idafat al-tashrif. Rahmatullah is idafat al-sifa ila al-mawsuf. That's not created. If Allah connects something that's created to Him in a context, it's called idafatun iktasabat al-tashrif. It's a connection that is acquired what? That Allah wanted to show that that thing has a special or something of a distinguishing factor about it that is what? Considered in high esteem and high level with Him, or something special about it that stands out. And Allah wanted to show it by connecting it with Him in a context. That's all. Now if you say Rahmatullah, what's that? Is that idafat al-tashrif? Then what is it? Ahsan. Allah is idafat al-sifa ila al-mawsuf. Connecting the adjective or the description to the one being described, and if it's Allah ta'ala, it is not created. Is it clear? Jay, same thing. Idafat al-sifa ila al-mawsuf. That's not idafat al-tashrif. Taib, last thing, and we'll stop here. Stop here. Taib. What about this? Let's throw you off for a minute. Don't forget this book. Don't leave it here. What about I'll explain this next class, but this is just to throw and make you think of something. Everything that happens from one time to the next, everything that happens from one time to the next, is it created? I taught you this already. Everything that happens from one time to the next, is it created? Stay firm. Uthbut ya uhud. Huh? You had the right answer the first time. Stay firm. Is everything that happens from one time to the next, is it created? Ahsant. Jayyid. Mumtaz. So somebody bid'ah try to ask you that question. You would know what to say. Not everything that happens from one time to the next is created. Huh? But certain things, like I said, from the creation, not everything that happens, as a matter of fact, let me start from the beginning of the qaida. Everything that's created has a time, or it happens from one time to the next. But not everything that happens from one time to the next is created. I want you guys to have that memorized. Is it clear what I'm saying? Everything that's created happens from one time to the next. يحصل في الوقت دون وقت. وليس كل ما أو كل ما يحدث في وقت دون وقت فهو مخلوق. Everything that happens, everything that's created, I'm going to say it again. Write this down. Everything that's created happens from one time to the next. Everything that's created. But not everything that's created happens from one time to the next. Not everything that's created, exactly. Not everything that's created happens from one time to the next. I'm sorry, everyone. Everything that's created happens from one time to the next. But not everything that happens from one time to the next is created. That's it. Is it clear what I'm saying? For example, the last thing. What's the example? The human being. The human being had started at a starting point. Where he was born, and it's a starting point where he what? Dies. Is it clear? Fine. Now let's give it an answer, example on the other side. The Quran. Is it makhluq? It's not. Fine. As far as the characteristics of Allah, of His actions, they are described as happening what, everyone? They can happen from what? One time to the next, and they are not created. The speech of Allah happens from one time to the next. Yes. The speech of Allah happens from one time to the next. Is it created? No. Because it's not makhluk. Is it clear what I'm saying? I talked about this before. Everything that's created happens from one time to the next. But not everything that happens from one time to the next is created. No, is created. Not everything that happens from one time to the next is created. Is it clear what I'm saying? Such as the speech of Allah. The speech of Allah happens from one time to the next, and it is not created. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to Nuh at his time. He spoke to Isa at his time. He spoke to Musa at his time. Talked to the Prophet ﷺ at his time. And they did not happen simultaneously as the Mu'tazila say. They all happen from one time to the next. And that makes absolute sense. It's clear. As far as the Mu'tazila, that's confusing. Allah spoke at the same time to everyone at the same time. In a total dimension where all this took place simultaneously, like they say. That's confusing. That's some old weirdo stuff. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? The Prophet ﷺ made it clear, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear. He says, فَلَمَّا جَاءَ مُوسَى لِمِيقَاتِنَا وَكَلَّمَهُ رَبُّهُ. When Musa came to the appointed meeting place, that means the speech didn't take place yet until Musa came there. When the Musa arrived, Allah spoke to him. Is it clear or not clear? Gee. You hear that? It's clear. You believe the other stuff them people believe? That's absolute confusing. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? All right, we'll stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.